Wow. All right. Good morning. I want to thank the IMA for having us today. I want to thank Brittany and the entire Creative Mornings team for all that they do. These are really, really special lectures we get to go to every month. So thank you to all the team that brings this together. All right. Could have been anywhere in the world this morning, but you're here with me, and I really appreciate that. I'm honored to be on this stage, and I'm humbled to share a little bit of my heart with you. Do you remember sitting in school, reading some dusty history book, wondering what it would be like to live in a time of volatility, persecution, uncertainty? Do you remember wondering what you would do if you were there? How you would react? You probably remember assuring yourself that you would have had the courage to stand on the right side of history, no matter the cost. Well, here we are. Alternate facts from Agent Orange, cronyism, suppression of the press, Muslim bans, registries, and midnight immigration raids. Here we are. It's happening right now. What will we do? What does this moment demand of us? First of all, we need to understand the institution is not just going to snap into action and protect people from abuse. In fact, there's a long and ugly history of the institution enabling oppression in the name of manifest destiny or national security, but that's for a different day. What will we do? How will we stand behind one another and force the institution to bend toward us? Today, I'm going to outline several ways we can challenge ourselves to act on the moral responsibility of the moment. By improving our ability to empathize, committing ourselves to more meaningful human connections, and considering the legacy we're leaving behind, we can be more than passive bystanders to history or surface-level social media activists. So as you might have guessed by now, I'm not going to stand up here and talk to you about my creative process or color theory or a few of my favorite projects. I think this moment demands more. But if you really want to talk shop, I'll be happy to have some Q&A afterwards. Speak up. Now, that's not to say that creativity has no role in what I'm going to discuss. In fact, creative problem solving and the collaborative spirit of this community will be at the very core of everything we're going to cover today. Empathy, the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person. If only it were that simple. Here's something that's becoming more and more clear to me. Most folks are just not wired to really feel the depths of someone else's experience without being in proximity to them. Yes, we're all capable of easy empathy, but the majority of us are too emotionally immature or unpracticed to actually consider a reality different from our own. When an alternate reality belongs to someone close to us, like a spouse or a child or a dear friend, we find it much easier to empathize with them. But here's the issue. For one reason or another, those people in our inner circles most often share very similar realities. Working, praying, thinking, eating, worrying, and dreaming in ways very similar to our own. So we aren't really stretching that empathy very much further than our own perspective. What if we spent more time with people that had less homogeneous emotional experiences? What if we stepped out and started to commune with folks just a little bit out of our inner circle? What if we listened and learned their fears and their ambitions? What if we were intentional and deliberate about practicing empathy beyond the places that it comes easily? Now, I can't tell you exactly how to do this. There isn't some formula, but the opportunities are there. Think just beyond the circle. Who's floating out there that you can be intentional about connecting with more deeply? Skimming a little Ta-Nehisi Coates and watching Atlanta at night is not going to be enough. We must diversify on a human level and be in emotional proximity to increase our capacity to empathize. Just listen. Tap into that connective current of shared experience because joy is the same and pain is the same. And this isn't just some squishy theory trying to explain why some people struggle with feeling other people's pain. Emerging neuroscience suggests that when intentionally exercised, empathy, like a muscle, can be stretched further and triggered more easily. There are actually neurons in your brain called mirror neurons. Cells that stimulate an emotional response, simulating what we think someone else is feeling. These neurons fire not only when you perform a certain action, but also when you see someone else doing the same thing. So what does this all mean? According to that research, empathy is literally a part of being human. It's something which can be taught or trained. Perhaps driving society to be more compassionate and empathetic toward others is not some flimsy fantasy, but a very real possibility. But it must be exercised regularly. Now, how do these ideas present themselves in our own community? Maybe we could look at public transportation, and perhaps you're familiar with the Indigo Red Line proposal. It's a dedicated rapid transit bus route designed to connect around 100,000 Indianapolis residents to work, healthcare, education, retail. Indianapolis ranks near the bottom of major American cities for economic mobility, and a big part of that is access to jobs. There are many people in Marion County who are willing to work but just can't get to the jobs that exist, and an enhanced transit system could help solve this problem. Now, this plan was met with a good bit of resistance, and while concerns about cost and lost parking spaces and impact on traffic are certainly valid, I wonder if the tone with which they were presented would have been different if we were better able to empathize with folks who would utilize the Red Line. What if we were better able to weigh personal inconvenience versus social good? Back to my earlier point about proximity. I wonder how things would change if everyone really knew someone, like really communed with someone else who relied on public transportation to get to work, to earn a living wage, to maybe feed their family. What if the Red Line meant a mom who was working 2 jobs could spend 1 less hour a day on a bus, sitting and waiting, and 1 more hour with her children? What impact would that have on her children? What impact would that have on our community? How would that anecdote and understanding and communing with that person change the way that we feel about public transportation? One more real-life example of lacking empathy. Black Lives Matter. Really, folks are offended by this? We don't possess enough empathy in our hearts to imagine that someone may live in a world different from our own. We can't hear the cries of pain, the pleas for help and justice, and we're so touchy that some understand this to mean Black Lives Matter more than others. It doesn't mean that. Then, we're so petty and insensitive and simple that we respond back, well, actually, all lives matter. This reaction comes from an inability to empathize, emotional laziness, cowardice. Why can't we just listen when someone tells us they're hurt? Other humans demanding justice and equality is not a threat to those that already have it. Push your empathy outward and try standing in someone else's shoes. If my daughter can do it, so can you. False connectedness. Next time you're waiting on something, look around. Stoplight, coffee shop, restaurant, doesn't matter. Just look around. Face and phone after phone. We seem to be physically incapable of passing time without them. Just look for the reflex. It's instinctual at this point. People are just reaching for the phone anytime their mind stops. What are we missing behaving like this? And let me be clear, I'm talking to myself here as well. I suffer from this. But what are we missing? Well, earlier we established how true relational connection may require proximity, communion with humans in real life. Are we leaving space for moments of serendipity, natural human connection? This vice has shifted our relationships toward a state where we're spread all over the place, but there's no depth to anything. So we fill the time with consumption of mostly mindless garbage. I mean, really, let's stop lying to ourselves. We're not trying to stay informed with our phone. They might be controlling us, feeding us a lie of false connectedness. All the while, we're sitting at an empty table in a room full of people, all in the same room and no one in the same space. What else are we missing? The relationships that matter, for one thing. Most of my meaningful and fulfilling connections in the city have been threaded together serendipitously. This person introduces me to such, and then this other person's doing this other thing. It's so beautiful. This city can be magical. Small enough that you're 3 people away from anything, and big enough that you have all the resources you need to collaborate on anything. Now, if I'm being honest, approaching community this way is not only the right thing to do, but also a viable and sustainable way to run a business. I'm 10 years in, and my phone has never stopped ringing. And it's because when you take care of people, they tend to take care of you back. So I'm going to shine light on a few of these meaningful connections. I'll share a bit of the work they're doing in our community and how these connections have influenced my own business practices. Amy Matthews. Amy owns and operates South Circle Farm, an organic urban farm downtown on South Meridian Street. She also very clearly loves kale. You can find Amy's produce in most all of your favorite farmers markets, grocers, and restaurants around town. Wildwood, Black Market, Pogues Run, Napoli's, Natural Born Juicers, just to name a few. But Amy and her staff are also committing to help grow a healthy city. Their flagship outreach program is Kids Grow Green, which sponsors at-risk youth to come to the farm and tend to their own gardens. Eventually, they learn to cook healthy meals and snacks they produce and grow with their own hands. The program concludes each year with an empowering harvest celebration where students prepare a meal for their families. I really don't know how else to describe Amy other than she might be one of the most decent, kind souls I've ever been able to get to know. She makes this city better with her hands and her heart. Amy's also passionate about what she does, and one thing I've taken away from my time with her is the importance of being able to talk about the work that you do. This one's especially for the young designers in the crowd today. Your work alone is not enough to set you apart. You are in an oversaturated marketplace. You're probably sitting next to a really good designer. You have to be able to sell the experience of working with you, not just the product. Buana Clements, social worker, speaker, counselor, head of school, founder, child whisperer. This dude right here is the salt of the earth. He has dedicated his life to serving society's most vulnerable, leveraging his own experiences to empathize and empower kids to cultivate self-worth. Hell, adults too. Every time I leave a meeting with him, I'm ready to light the world on fire. For a couple years now, I've had the pleasure of volunteering with Buana at the Urban Initiative High Five Rallies, which he co-founded. The High Five Rallies are a simple but beautiful extension of his servant heart. Every month, a group of community leaders gather at an IPS school and form a tunnel of love and support, high-fiving, fist-bumping, and encouraging the kids as they enter school. Watching these kids light up when they realize what's happening has to be one of the most pure feelings of joy I've ever felt. Buana reminds me that sometimes the act of showing up and letting folks know that you love and care for them can be so much more powerful than words. Buana inspires me to be a better father, husband, and citizen. Mary Stump. Most people around town just know her as the Can Lady. The Can Lady collects aluminum cans and other recyclables, sells them for scrap, and uses the money to fund grants for teachers at Indianapolis Public Schools. She has been doing it for almost 10 years. That's over 1 million cans and over $60,000 donated directly to IPS classrooms. Teachers from schools that participate in collecting cans are eligible to submit proposals for stuff they need in their classroom: iPads, art equipment, recess equipment, chemistry kits, 3D printers, doesn't matter, whatever they need. A volunteer committee then vets the proposals and delivers the items to the classroom. Mary has taught me a lot about the rhythm of life and self-care. It's easy to overstretch ourselves between professional responsibilities, personal projects, and trying to make the world a better place, especially these days when it seems like our president has done something crazy every morning. We can't drink from the fire hose all the time. We have to pace ourselves, like Mary does, so we don't burn out. And there are many, many more wonderful people doing meaningful work in this city, all threaded together. Like Amanda Reynolds. She could show up at my office every day with some crazy-ass new idea, and every day I would drop whatever I was doing to help her. Or Rima Shahid, Executive Director of the Muslim Alliance of Indiana. Can you imagine the weight of her work right now at this very moment? Or Molly Chavers. Most here probably know Molly. I think most everyone everywhere knows Molly. The thing I respect most about Molly is her selfless leadership. About a year ago, Molly was asked to take this very stage, and she deferred and insisted that we hear from Jason Nolan Dewar instead, president of Indy Pride. And anyone who was there remembers how powerful that hour was. I want to lead the way that Molly leads. We'll try to put some links up on the Creative Mornings page so you can learn more about supporting all these people and the wonderful work they do in the community. Side note here, semi-related to all these wonderful human beings, you should always surround yourself with people better than you. I mean, I'm not even the smartest person at my dinner table. Shit, I might not even be the smartest person, second smartest person at the dinner table. That's beautiful though. You can't expect to grow in an environment that no one ever challenges you. All right, we'll wrap it up. I'm sure she was not happy about that slide. If I've got a gift, it's not design. It's meeting people where they are. Folks come into my office scared, excited, empowered, confused, confrontational. I have to meet them there emotionally. I'm not a designer, I'm a servant with a sketchbook. I never really felt drawn to traditional metrics of success, wealth, notoriety, whatever. I mean, some of that, sure, but it never felt like the goal. I wasn't even sure what the goal was for a long time. What I was doing was working fine, but it felt directionless or unintentional in some way. Then, 3 or 4 years ago, some friends of mine convinced me over lunch margaritas, Amy, that we should build some shared office space downtown, right off the circle. And it changed everything for me. Everything. All the squishy, abstract shit that was floating around in my head coalesced into something tangible. All of a sudden, I had the space, physical and emotional space, to incubate empathy and develop more meaningful relationships. The local 510 was born. Now, my primary metric of success is the success of others. The success of other small businesses that have space in here. The success of clients who sit across this table from me. The success of folks who just come to hang out for a few hours between meetings. There is a palpable, creative undercurrent that radiates from the 510, and it makes me very proud. Because when they put me in the dirt, no one's going to care about my Instagram likes or the Addies I've won. I want to be remembered by the people I lifted up, the stories I supported, the space we created, that I did right by my mom, that I raised 2 little soldiers, and that I loved my wife fiercely. That is a legacy worth seeking. All right, so what are we going to do with all this? Empathy, connection, legacy, the moment. We have to believe in a light that shines and never dies. What alternative do we have? The only thing that is the end of the world is the end of the world. So we cannot allow apathy, cynicism, and resignation to paralyze us while someone snuffs the light out. They want the light out. They want us to give up, to be resigned to the impossibility of progress. But they can't stop us when we embrace hope and optimism. May we have the courage to be protectors and beacons of light. Start right here, where we are, in this beautiful city, at this very moment. Seek depth. Create space, engage with the servant's heart, shine light on others, and feel things deeply. I'll close with this from Marianne Williamson. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine. We are all meant to shine. Thank you.